So here's the 1984 210. Now that it's all back together again. The transmission was leaking, and I found out the water must have gotten down in there through the stick shift, where the stick shift comes up through the top of the transmission. So I'm gonna have to take that apart, just the top. There's 3 screws to hold that on, and replace the gasket, the O-ring around the stick shift, so that way water doesn't get down in there. It was like an orangey, nasty color when it came out, and it was way full. And I've checked the oil in the transmission on this before, and it wasn't like that. And I don't leave this thing outside, so I'm not quite sure how that could have happened from me just washing this thing down, but it's possible. So, I just changed the oil in the transmission, so it's all good and happy now. What else did I do to it? Oh yeah, before I put the engine on, I put brand new drive belt to the transmission on there. Brand new fuel line and fuel filter, because the other one was kind of old and brittle, the fuel line. I mean, it was original. It's not that expensive to just throw another fuel line on there. And I mean, it's not like I just went out and bought all these parts at once, because that's a lot of money just to throw down all at once. So it took me quite a long time to do this, just to gather the parts together. Probably the longest thing to get was the parts for the engine. We had a hard time tracking down a piston at a reasonable price for it. One that has OEM quality. Because Kohler wanted 180 bucks, 190 bucks for a piston, standard bore piston for this thing. Holy crap! So we wound up at a small engine shop. The guy highly recommends Stens or rotary parts, one of those 2 brands. Says that they're OEM quality, so that's what we wound up putting in this. Cost me about 80 bucks, which is a whole lot better. It is not made in China, so the quality control is a lot better than a Chinese-made piston, which I'm sure are out there. It's made in Thailand, so it's still Asian, but oh well. I really wanted a Kohler piston, but not for 180 bucks. I'm sorry. So I just threw. Surprisingly, the belt that was on the motor deck was what diameter belt was that? I don't know. It was too small for the pulleys, anyways. But it worked, and that's just what was on there when I got the deck. So I found one of the traction belts. The one that goes from the variator to the transmission on this wound up being the same size belt as the drive belt for the motor deck, and it had enough life left in it where I just threw it on there for now until I get a new belt for that. The drive belt from the engine to the motor deck is brand new. I replaced it before I took the engine off this thing because the belt was bad. That's a John Deere belt, so it's a good belt. This is not the original motor deck to this tractor. The original motor deck's over here in front of the L, has bad bearings on it. This deck here I rebuilt because it was a whole lot easier for me to get bearings into these newer style spindles than it was the older. And this is off of 210. It's basically the same deck, it's just newer. And a better deck. So with that all being said, what else did I do to this thing? Oh yeah. I'll get the grill off here. You can kind of see the rivets right there. Brand new rubber engine mounts. These guys right here that hold this cradle, all 4 of them were replaced because they actually started to drop through. I have them up at the house, I can show you what I mean. As they age, the rubber on the bottom will actually drop through and the engine will bounce around under the hood like crazy. Which it does on my 1977 210 because I never replaced them. Pretty much never touched anything on this side of the engine. I've never to this day seen the points on either this tractor or my 1977 210. Never had to. Never given me a problem. Never touched a fuel pump. There's the new fuel line coming up to the pump right there. Goes all the way to the back of the tractor. It's about 5 feet of fuel line, I believe. Pretty long. Brand new air filter. What else did I do? Oh yeah. Around the back side, I've had these for a while now, just haven't put them on until now. These are LED taillights. I didn't have good luck putting taillights on the other 210. I had incandescent bulb style ones. See, they're pretty cool looking. 6 LEDs per light. The other 210 rattled the filaments out of the bulbs in a matter of about 2 weeks. It was going through bulbs like crazy, so I took them off. And this one doesn't shake so bad. I don't know why that one vibrates. The fenders are kind of funky, and the other one, they kind of rattle like crazy. It's not the engine, it's just, I think it could be the bad engine mounts causing that. Because this one doesn't do that, but I still went with LED because they look kind of neat, and I like LEDs. So it's different. And these tractors did have an option for taillights, so there is a wiring hookup under the hood where you just plug it right in. Although I wired mine differently. I wired mine so that way they're not on all the time, which is how the original taillights would have been if this had them. I wired them to come on with the headlight switch. And you gotta be careful when you're doing wiring on these things. You use the proper size wire. The LEDs don't take much to power them, so the wire I've got going back to the back, I think, was some 12 gauge stranded that I had, and 12 gauge is way enough. Yep, so that's about all that's happened with this. Starts about as easy as the 77 210 does. You just barely touch the key and it kicks right off. So the only problem with it so far that actually might require me taking the engine back out is the oil pan didn't seal right, so it drips a little bit. You can see where I parked it, that's from it dripping out of the oil pan. The gasket just didn't seal right. I'm not sure why. I scraped it down real clean, put some form a gasket around it, put the brand new gasket there, coated both sides of the gasket. I don't know, it never had a problem like that before, so I'm pretty sure it's not bent. It's a steel oil pan, so who knows. I might have to take it off and look at that. And it still smokes. I don't think it's fully broken in yet. It smokes when you start it, and it smokes when you throttle it up. But it clears up. It's not a constant smoke. I'll start it up. I'll give it some rev. Really, it's you can't really see it smoking on the camera here, but it's I'm happy. It came out pretty good. The valve noise, well, my grandpa always said, and he was a diesel mechanic in the military, I'd rather hear valve noise than over-adjust the valves and wear them prematurely. And these valves were adjusted to the specs, so the noise is just going to be there. And it's not bad. They seal very well. It's got excellent compression. It's got a lot more power than it had before the rebuild. I really haven't had a chance to mow with it through real thick grass yet. I've already mowed with the other 210 late last week, both the lawns I do. So I'll wait till the end of this week and we'll give it a good try. We're supposed to get some rain a little bit later today, tomorrow maybe. So the grass will be growing pretty good by then, and then I'll put this thing to work. This 2-bladed 38-inch deck puts a lot of load on this tractor, a lot more load than my 47-inch 3-bladed deck does, just because these blades have a crazy pitch to them to throw the grass up into the bagger, which I don't have on this thing right now. Doesn't matter what 210 you put that deck on, it'll load them right up. The 47 deck doesn't take hardly any power to run at all. So, yep, that's the 210 right now. It's mobile again. I'm happy to have this project about done. And when I get the 650 back, that's if I'm taking the engine out of this thing, I'm going to use the boom pole and the 650 and just attach it right to the lift point on top of the engine. Boy, this thing's a